Day, everyone. Welcome to Past the Rock. We're a week past the NFL draft. And last week at this time, Jesse and I both had a team in the NBA playoffs. A lot of things have changed since then, some for the good, some for the worse. I'll say good on the NFL side of things, maybe worse on the NBA side of things. Jesse, how's it going?
Good. Like you said, in the past week, both of us have lost our NFL team or NBA teams out of the playoffs, but we both have something in common, and that's that we both got young teams. They're exciting. They got a bright future. I know that we got a couple of friends at Past the Rock here who got the Heat, got the Sixers going all in right now, but doesn't hurt to have a young, budding team of like young superstars. You got Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Alvarado, who's one of the most exciting players. We got our own, little special group of guys. So overall, it was sad to see them get knocked out, but we got a lot to look forward to next season.
No. I'm totally looking forward to it. Obviously, we have to figure out a little Zion Williamson Supermax deal in the offseason and what happens there. But even Stephen A. Smith is getting on the Pels train. And I don't know if I feel great about that or terrible. But, it was a great end of the year, got through the play-in, gave the Suns a little bit of a scare. And we'll see what happens for next year. Is a little tougher to continue to watch the NBA playoffs when your team gets bounced. But, Giannis had a performance yesterday that makes you want to watch again. So we'll talk a lot about that. But first, let's do a little odds and ends. A lot of NFL news this week. Deandre Hopkins out for 6 weeks potentially. Suspension. So not a good thing from his part. Where do you see the Cardinals? I mean, obviously that Hollywood Brown trade, a lot different now.
Yeah, it makes a little more sense now why they went after Hollywood Brown. I still don't get it from the Ravens side of things. Like, that was Lamar's guy. He was clearly not happy about it. But good for the Cardinals. They took a hit. A lot of people didn't notice, but Christian Kirk was a huge piece of that offense, and he's with the Jags now. And losing D-Hop for 6 games, you can expect Rondale Moore, Marquis Brown, all of those guys to take a boost. I'm not sure if A.J. Green is still, if they have him for another year
I think
or not,
so.
But but if they do, then he might move up a peg too. So it's going to deal a pretty significant blow. And I know that the relations with Kyler Murray are already a little rocky.
Right.
So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they knew about this when they traded for Marquise Brown, but it's hard for me to really. It's hard for me to believe that, though, because Marquise Brown is not like the alpha one receiver. I've had him many years in fantasy football, and when he was one of the only options in Baltimore, he very rarely is successful for multiple weeks in that role. I thought he was awesome apart from Hopkins to be able to get the second best cover guy or whatever coverage rolling over to D-Hop. But I'm a little worried about this situation. Obviously, it's only 6 weeks and, they can still have a successful season. But I think this is a big loss, and I don't know that he was the receiver I would have gone after.
I actually love the fit. I think Marquise Brown fits perfectly with what the Cardinals do on offense. He's explosive, fast. He's used to playing with a running quarterback. He's kind of like Rondale Moore, but he's already been in the league for 2 years. So I really like that combo of Murray to Marquise. So I think that that's going to be a nice connection. And when you look at who else they could have got, obviously they weren't really going after anyone in the draft. And there's not that many great wide receivers left on the market. Jarvis Landry, Will Fuller. I would probably take Marquise Brown over both of those guys. So he's really young too. I mean, he's 2 years in the league already. So I love the move for the Cardinals. Don't really get it for the Ravens, considering wide receiver was already one of their weakest strong suits or weakest points, but not weakest. But they lost Sammy Watkins too. So Rashad Bateman, wide receiver 1 next year. If you got him in a dynasty league, you are going to be holding on for dear life.
Yeah, Mark Andrews may be the number 1 tight end selected.
Oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think Lamar Jackson's very happy. And look, after week 6, I'm excited about that Marquise Brown signing or trade for the Cardinals, because then he's your number 2 receiver. The coverage goes back to D-Hop, and then he's probably open all the time. So I do like the play long term. I just think in those first 6 weeks, it's going to be hard for him to be the one to really replace D-Hop. So, but yeah, anyway, it was just a piece of all the moves that were going on. I mean, it was just constant. So when you have, I think it was like 6 or 7 teams that had 2 picks, the trades were just crazy, which we'll talk about. Saints, I'll let you comment on this because, I'm a fanboy. So They signed Tyran Matthew to a 3-year, $33 million contract. What do you think of that deal? Was it the right move for them?
This just seems like what we all knew was going to happen eventually, like a month ago. I mean, I know you were probably hoping for it he's an LSU guy, for him to come back, to Louisiana. So I think it's a great fit. I think that the Saints could definitely always use help on defense or in the secondary. They've always had a strong secondary. He's an experienced veteran safety. He's been around for a while. He won a Super Bowl a few years ago with the Chiefs. So I think he's a great pick for them. I mean, it seems like something that has been in the works. Everyone was kind of wondering where he was going to sign. It always seemed like the Saints were the front runner. So I'm glad that that's over. Also, in the last 2 weeks, Melvin Gordon ended up signing with the Broncos. He was one of the other last kind of outstanding names. They just signed him back to a deal. So good for those guys.
Yeah, and I think Jarvis Landry is still out there. I think now that the Saints have signed Matthew, they're not going to be in the Jarvis Landry sweepstakes. I just think, they drafted Chris Olave as well. So it just becomes a really expensive third receiver for them. But, Tyran Matthew, great. I hope he gets number 7 back. That was his number at LSU. I don't think Taysom's going to give it up, but we'll see. I think now that Taysom's a tight end, maybe he should just be number 87 and we move on. So let's take a look at the community mock draft. This draft was all over the place. Obviously, only one quarterback went in the first round, unlike our community draft. But I'd like you to take us through and see what's going on there and where we made some major hits and where we had some major misses.
All right, so let's take a look here. So we actually had a pretty solid top 3, except for the fact that Trayvon Walker fell all the way down to 8th. But 2, 3, 4 was actually Hutchinson, Stingley, and then Sauce Gardner there.
Yeah, your man Sauce.
Followed by Thibodeau as well. So we just had Walker there in the wrong spot. Obviously, Malik Willis is standing out here. I think that was just a fan favorite pick. Panthers wanting to maybe go quarterback in the draft. They ended up taking Matt Corral, but Malik Willis fell to what, like 66 or something, or pretty farther down the 6, we'll say. But Garrett Wilson going in the top 10 right there. We had Kenny Pickett, obviously not going to Pittsburgh, but going early on there. Jordan Davis at 13 ended up happening, except that pick got traded. Kyle Hamilton did end up going to the Vikings, or no, he went to the Ravens.
The Ravens, 2 picks later.
Right there. Okwonu, he went pretty high as well. Interesting. So we had the Eagles going after Olave and the Saints instead taking Drake London. Is this something that you would have preferred to see happen, or were you happy with the pick?
Well, I was very happy with the pick. Now, Drake London went 8th to the Falcons, so he was way gone. There was actually a run. Actually, we got Chris Olave at pick 11 because the Saints ended up trading up because there was a wide receiver run for a little bit. I think it was a record number of wide receivers taken in the first round. So.
And that's after the last year, too, or the last couple of years where we've seen a lot of wide receivers going off the board early.
Exactly. And we saw no running backs go in the first round and only one quarterback. So tons of offensive linemen and defensive linemen and then the wide receivers. So, no, look, Drake London was a good one. I thought he was too much of a prototype like Mike Thomas. So I was actually hoping we would go, or the Saints would go and get Chris Olave, and that's exactly what they did. So all good. I think he could be, a Jordan Jefferson type, taking a little pressure off of Mike Thomas and whoever else they run out there, with their top receiving core.
Yeah, and then we see Tyler Linderbaum ended up going, I think, a few picks later to the Ravens later in the first round. And then, we had a lot more receivers here as well. You had Dotson, Sky Moore, who ended up on the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes' new target.
That's right.
That's going to be fun for them. And we had the Panthers actually, or Matt Corral going to the Steelers. They ended up taking Pickett instead. And then we had the Panthers taking Howell at the end of the round here.
No, it was it's always interesting when you do a community mock draft. People want to take, who they want for their teams and whatnot. And, one thing we did miss on, we thought the Packers would take a wide receiver in the first round, and obviously they didn't do that. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, where do you fall after multiple drafts where they're just not helping? Now, granted, they did get a receiver in the second round, but not in the first.
I guess they're stuck in their ways. Maybe it's just a pillar of the Green Bay Packers is you do not draft an offensive player, let alone a wide receiver, in the first round. And I heard some rumor, not sure if it's actually true, that Aaron Rodgers didn't know that Devontae Adams was leaving when he actually signed. I know we talked about
Right.
this when Rodgers made the signing like 2 months ago, that, he had to have known, but apparently there's some saying that it was the other way around. So that's even more of a shocker. He'd say, all right,
Yeah.
you guys told me he was staying. Now he's on Oakland. You better get a receiver. And they got Sammy Watkins so far, who beyond week 1, we know is not,
Exactly.
is not a stud receiver. There's going to be that week 1. They'll outscore whoever 38-3. He'll have 140 yards and a couple touchdowns, and then never again. So we'll see what other moves they make there.
Yeah, I mean, the chat's saying that Rodgers is a guaranteed MVP. The problem is that the older he gets and the less weapons he has. I mean, look, he can pinpoint the ball to anyone and probably throw 85% of the league open, with the accuracy that he has. But at some point, it's going to catch up to him. And when we talk a little bit later about, some NFC power rankings from Dan Orlovsky of ESPN, we'll see that the Packers aren't going up; they're going down a little bit. So now let's get to the draft of what we thought went on. So who do you think had a really good draft that we want to note here?
I know Zach Zeman would love to be here tonight, but he's writing a final right now. I'm going to say on his behalf, the Philadelphia Eagles, for once, are not the fools of the draft. They made a great move trading that number 18 as well as the 100th pick for A.J. Brown, who is already a proven stud, aside from the fact that he sometimes can't stay on the field. But when he is on the field, he is a number 1 wide receiver, borderline top 10 guy in the NFL. I'd say it could finally be redemption for all of the bust receivers, the Arcega-Whitesides, the Jalen Reagors. So, I mean, and we still don't really know about Jalen Reagor, but it's not pretty if you're on Eagles Twitter. So I think A.J. Brown is a phenomenal wide receiver to get on draft night, as well as the Jordan Davis at 13. That's exactly where we had him in the community mock. He's going to be a stud. That guy can rumble. It's going to be scary watching him, as well as Nakobe Dean, another defensive player. So they came out with a great receiver and a new center to replace Jason Kelce after he retires pretty soon. So overall, they filled a lot of their needs. They made a lot of great picks, and I'd say Eagles fans should be pretty happy and looking at a contention for the NFC East.
I was begging the Saints and a couple other teams to take Nakobe Dean. He just kept falling and falling. And then story came out that he had, declined to have surgery. So maybe he does that now. Maybe he's missing the first half of the year. I think people get too pent up in, am I going to have this person for 17 games next year? And, looking at the long game and, am I going to have this player healthy in years 2, 3, 4 and beyond? And I think that was a great pick by them. I think they traded up a little bit in the round that they did pick him, but I'm going to say the Jets had the best draft. They get your man Sauce, which is one of the greatest nicknames in the history of the NFL and the NFL draft. So the top cornerback in all the draft. They get the top wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. And then they get the top running back in round 2 with Breece Hall. Now, just because you're the top rated doesn't make you the best necessarily long term. But I think that the Jets did exactly what they needed to do, build up some offense, around their young quarterback and young team altogether. I think they have one player over the age of 30 on the whole team right now. So, but yeah, get him some weapons. Let's see what goes. And, I think the Jets did a great job.
The Jets are the Rockets of the NFL. I swear to God, they're just probably going to be really not that great. Still could be one of the bottom teams in the NFL, but they're going to be fun to watch. They're going to make games entertaining. They've got young budding stars again, kind of like the Rockets. And like you said, they got some of the best nicknames with Sauce Gardner. Right. They got exciting new weapons for Golden Boy on the Jets to try out. So it's going to be really exciting to watch Zach Wilson next year. I think with even more weapons, and they're not going to be the worst team in the AFC. That's for sure. I could easily see them finishing around 7-10, 6-11, maybe. They've also got Robert Saleh working with these guys. So good luck to the Jets. It could be, dare I say, an exciting time to be a Jets fan.
Yeah, I mean, everybody always wonders when somebody takes the Jets job, why would you take it? It's because there are no expectations whatsoever. And so I do like Robert Saleh. I like Robert Saleh a lot, and I think he can do something with this team. And I think he took, the draft pick that they had for who's the safety that went to Seattle. But that's how they had the extra pick in the first round, or the top 10. And so I think they did a great job, and they're moving on from here. And I'm excited about them. We'll talk all throughout the summer, but I don't know that they end up being the fourth place team in the AFC East. We'll have to see. Some teams that we graded the lowest. I'm going to start here. I don't love what the Seahawks were doing. Number one, I really think they needed to throw a quarterback into this mix and see what they, granted they have some mediocre talent as it is, but I'd love to see, what they can do if they had added one of these quarterbacks. They waited. They had 2 second-round picks back to back. I thought they were going to take a quarterback with one of those. No. They take an edge rusher from Minnesota, and then a running back from Michigan State, Kenneth Walker, who was impressive, but it's just one of those drafts where you watch, and I don't think they really, pinpointed the areas that they needed to get, or maybe the players didn't fall to them. I like that they took 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds, because they need help there for sure, and Russell Wilson will attest to that. So didn't love what the Seahawks were doing. What's a team you didn't love what their strategy was?
I didn't love what the Panthers were doing. Now, I understand that they were taking some defensive picks. They got Owanku in the top 10, and then they took 2 more linebackers throughout the draft. So I guess they're just trying to pad the defense, and they've had some linebackers leave in the last few years. But I didn't really love the Corral pick. They've already got – Sam Darnold's not the guy, but it seems like they're just going to be running through different quarterbacks, trying to find their guy. Maybe they're just – throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, and just they don't really want Darnold. Maybe this will light a fire under Darnold somehow. I don't know if that's what they're hoping, but I didn't love what they were doing in the draft, and I don't think Matt Corral is necessarily the answer to their quarterback problems. I think that there's better guys out there, but the Panthers, I think, were the team that I was the least impressed by. Yeah,
Matt Corral is an interesting guy because he played at Ole Miss, so in the SEC, I've seen him play a few times. A lot of people either really like him or really don't like him. And, we have some folks in the chat that think he'll be the best quarterback out of this draft. I don't think that is too far-fetched to say, just because I don't think there'll be anybody out of this draft that's going to be exceptional. But he does kind of have a polarizing effect on people. I actually don't think he'll be great, but I also don't think the Panthers gave up much to grab him in the 4th round or 5th round, whatever it was. So, thank you. I think the Kitty Cats did not do so well. And I think the NFC South is already down to 2 teams, Bucks and Saints, but we'll talk about that later. Right. Rookie quarterback rankings. So looking at Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ritter, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, why did they drop so far, and who would you rank top on that list?
I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about a lot of these guys other than, what they showed on the TV on draft night. But I guess with Kenny Pickett, it's exciting because I guess Pittsburgh is just coming at the very end of their, quarterback tenure with Big Ben, as well. Same with Atlanta. They just finished Matt Ryan. Marcus Mariota is supposed to be the QB1 this year. We'll see if he actually makes it to week 10. Or if, maybe there's a point where Desmond Ritter takes the reins. Same with, I guess, Ryan Tannehill, it's still his offense for sure. But with the loss of AJ Brown, maybe they're going to be looking to go younger. We'll see where King Henry's at next year, after he was pretty much rushed back into the playoffs. I don't even know, to be honest, what the top rankings would be. Really don't know who of any of them is going to get playing time next year.
Yeah, I think Pickett's got the best chance, just because, the Steelers, like you said, Big Ben retired.
Yeah, I guess they got Trubisky, but
they do have Trubisky's, but I think he has the best chance to play, and because Trubisky will eventually disappoint. So Desmond Ritter, I actually like from a confidence standpoint, amongst these 4. Now, granted, he got drafted by the Falcons, so that's the end of my like for him, but. He has already said that he is not leaving Atlanta until he wins the Super Bowl. So I think and look, I think obviously he's not going to be leaving in 1 or 2 years where that team is. But I think he got a lot of confidence from playing at Cincinnati and, not getting much respect. over the years. So we'll see how he does. Malik Willis, I just think, is too raw to really see where he is. I think Matt Corral of the four is probably the one I'd say is going to be the best out of these four, but I don't think any of these four are going to be super relevant 5+ years away. But I'm sure we can clip that, and when one of them is a Hall of Famer, Tom Brady-esque, then we'll have that on recording. But I think there's a reason that they dropped so far, because none of them stands out either with their physical ability or their makeup or even their track record. I mean, Desmond Ritter is probably the most successful of the quarterbacks, but who did he play the entire time? Other than when he got to the playoffs last year. So very suspect year. I'm super glad that a couple of teams stayed out of it, like the Saints, and they're going to go forward with a former number 1 overall pick in Jameis Winston. So. Looking at the current NFC power rankings, so Dan Orlovsky of ESPN came out with this today. 1 is the Rams, 2 is the Bucks. I don't think that surprises anyone. 3 is the Saints, 4 the Packers, 5 the Eagles. How do you see the NFC shaping up? Obviously, you have the Cardinals and the 49ers hanging around. Maybe there's a second team in the NFC East, although I don't think that's super evident. If anybody, it would be the Cowboys. But how do you see the NFC power rankings as of today?
I think that's very bold. The Eagles in the top 5 there, but I am excited to see what they can do next year. I'm shocked that the Saints at 3, although I do think the Saints are going to be right there at the top. Of the division with the Bucks, but that's pretty bold. I do like the Eagles being high. I think that they could. They were 9-9, 8-1 last year. Or 9-8. So I think that they could definitely make a leap and win at least 2 more games. And considering how god awful the NFC East is, it's not hard to get 5 or 6 divisional wins in that division. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be coming back with a vengeance. I don't know about top 5 of the conference, but the Rams got to be the favorite again. Packers, I could see taking a bit of a tumble. Like, they'll still be in contention for the division. I'm mostly excited to see, where the Dallas Cowboys go, where Arizona and San Francisco end up. I think that San Francisco could definitely make another run at the top 5.
Yeah, no, I was actually surprised he had the Packers as high up. And I know that they've been successful. They've won 39 games over the last 3 years, but I just don't think they've replaced the players like they've needed to. I think the Eagles will take a step up as long as their quarterback takes a step up. So it's all in his hands, and you can't cry about the weapons anymore. They're right there for the Eagles to step up, and they're in the worst division. Maybe you can argue it's the worst division in football. I think the NFC South has something to say with 2 really bad teams, one kind of middle of the road team, and the Bucks. But it'll be interesting to see. But I think the Rams and the Bucks are firmly there. I think it all depends on, can Tom Brady's line protect him? But I don't know how you stop the Rams. They just gave up all their draft picks in order to get players in the middle of the season. So I'm sure they'll do it again this year and give away whatever draft picks they have left. But the big question, could the Patriots come in 4th in the AFC East? I'll let you start that one.
I did not want to bring that up when you said that the Jets might not finish last, but like we pointed out, the Dolphins have added a lot of talent on, especially the offensive side of the ball. They got Tyreek Hill, they got Raheem Mostert, they got Chase Edmonds. If Tua can't succeed with all of that, plus Jalen Waddle, plus Mike Gesicki, plus whoever else they had already at running back, Myles Gaskin, it's seriously a time to reevaluate. But the Dolphins were a game back of the playoffs last year at 9-8. They did have a fairly easy schedule, but Patriots were 10-7, the Bills were 11-6. The Jets won 4 games last year. So for them to not be last in the division, they're likely going to have to go at least 500. I think this is a division where everybody could be 500 except for that team that's in 4th.
Yeah.
So I don't expect the Patriots to surpass what they did last season. I think that, like you said, a lot of these other teams are surging right now, and the Patriots are kind of, they've had a dynasty for the last 20 years. So they're kind of where the Spurs are at. They've always had comparisons to the Spurs, but that's kind of where they're at, where I could see them missing the playoffs next year, especially with the moves that were made by like the Browns in the offseason and the Raiders in the offseason and the Chargers in the offseason and the Broncos. Like a lot of teams that missed the playoffs last year made some moves, and the Patriots lost players. They lost J.C. Jackson. They had an okay draft, but it's not off the table. I could definitely see the Jets moving up a couple wins, but I still don't expect them to win more than 8 or 9 games. I would expect the Patriots to at least remain around 500. So I think the Patriots will definitely be not in first, but I don't think they'll be in fourth. It's likely a third place finish, and the Jets are still fourth, but it could be like a 7-10 fourth as opposed to 4-13 like this year.
Yeah, I don't see the Patriots coming in fourth. I think you have the Jets, who will be improved but still not be great yet, on their way up. I also think the Dolphins are an injury away from, and you could say that about most teams, but if Tua gets injured or if Tyreek Hill gets injured and is out for any amount of time, I think that team could really, securely get fourth place. So
this is a team that lost 7 games in a row and then won 7 games in a row. So they're a little streaky.
Yeah, and we'll see what kind of longevity they have. Tua's got to get it together. He's got to have a higher than 65% completion percentage, or higher than whatever. He's been hovering around the 60%. So he's got to make improvements there. If he does, they could be really good, scary good. So, but yeah, I think it's still up in the air, and I'm definitely not betting against Bill Belichick to make this work and just have him not come in fourth. And look, Mac Jones could step up and really make some strides in year 2. So excited to see. It is a lot more exciting division than it's been the last 20 years, where you knew the Patriots are going to run away with it and hide with 6 games left. So good to see there. A lot of undrafted free agents signed. Obviously, there's a frenzy as soon as the draft is over for people to sign these undrafted free agents. I saw a stat that there are more undrafted free agents in the Hall of Fame than first round picks. So there's a lot. Obviously, back in the day when there was a lot less teams, you had a lot more undrafted free agents. So, and we have a list here: Cole Beasley, Robbie Anderson, Adam Thielen. There's plenty. So I don't have any comments on any of the undrafted free agents that were signed, but something to keep an eye on. And we just added Austin Eckler, so that's a good one as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of great offensive talent that's gone undrafted, defensive too. And yeah, like you said, it's just, a sheer numbers game, but it is interesting and is fun to know that we, like, a lot of the past top 3, 4, 5 picks have all been busts. And then you see guys like Austin Eckler or JC Jackson, who are the top of what they do in the NFL and weren't drafted. So for anybody who didn't hear their name called, it's always a nice, comforting stat to know that it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how you finish. And, anything's possible after draft day.
That's right. And an interesting metric that came out this year that you haven't seen too much: relative athletic score, taking the player's physical and athletic stats and combines them into a number between 1 and 10. This to me is like the Wonderlic test, that the players used to take. And it's like, oh, low Wonderlic score. I'm like, can he play football? I'm sure. And I'm not trying to disparage Brett Favre at all. I have no idea what his Wonderlic score was, but I'm sure it was lower than, how he performed in the NFL. So obviously this has to do with athleticism and not smarts and whatever. But, our intern, Alpha Dog, saying that the Colts did not draft a single player below an RAS of 9.0. I'm sure there were a lot of teams that fit into that. Do you think it matters?
Like you said, it's a very, cherry-picked metric, it seems. Yeah. I guess if it's players who are like objectively incredibly physical and athletic, and it's like a guy who's, 6'5", 280 pounds, but he runs a 4.37 40, I would think that guy would be good at football. So I think that it's an interesting metric. It's interesting that the Colts didn't draft anyone below 9. I would be curious to see if they were the only team to do that, or if they're just like, athletes are freaks nowadays. Like every year, the fastest this or the highest this or the heaviest that is getting broken. So I'm not surprised. I would also be interested to see what percentage of players in the draft have a relative athlete score over 9 or how many 10 out of 10s there are if this guy, Jelani Woods, that they drafted is like the only 10 ever, or if there's like 50 different tight ends who are like exactly like that. So I would be interested to hear more information on that.
Well, the Lions' average score was second overall at 9.18. And if you look at, I guess they have been tracking this for, it looks about 10 years or so. Last year's average for the entire NFL was 7.68. Before that, 6.97, 6.46 in 2019. So obviously, some teams are really looking closely at this, but I think you're right. In the end, sometimes you just have a winner.
I mean, if the Lions had the second highest and they were able to win that few games last year.
Oh, no, they were the second highest last week in the draft. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
So okay. We'll have to see how they do. But yeah, no, I think it's just one of those metrics. Some teams look at it, but in the end, you got to get out there and play football and play smart.
Were the Colts the highest?
I don't know. It was an article from the Detroit Free Press, so they were focused on Detroit. But we'll let I'm sure Alpha Duck will let us know. But let's move over to the NBA playoffs. So like we said before, we're both in depression right now with the Pelicans and Raptors out. I really thought the Raptors were going to end up making us both look really good by winning in 7 games, but it didn't happen. A lot of stories going on in the NBA playoffs. You have game 1 of Sixers Heat and Mavs Suns tonight. So and then Bucks Celtics and Warriors Grizzlies already had their game 1s. I don't think it's much of a story, but Joel Embiid gonna get his French nationality to play with Rudy Gobert, I guess. Any thoughts on that?
That's very interesting that he would do that. I thought is he not from Cameroon? So I guess you can play for both, but would be crazy to see Embiid and Gobert on the same team. I don't think that there's enough room on the floor for both of them, but no. I would hate to be a guard trying to get into the paint against that team.
Yeah, no, you'd have to be you have to shoot well, and I'm sure Donovan Mitchell would look forward to playing against that team. But that's about it. Yeah, I think he's just looking for a chance to play for the internationally. So, but both of us losing our teams in the last week. We talked about being young with bright futures. You've had some success in recent years with the Raptors. I'm about tired of having bright futures. I want it to happen. And I think this is the first time in the last 10 years that it kind of looks like there's an option there. So,
and how else for it to end at the hands of Chris Paul in a literal perfect game, 14-14, 30 points, outstanding game from Chris Paul, just a clinic, but for him to be the dagger in the hearts of the Pelicans franchise.
It's tough. It's what I will say is he had to have a perfect game to make it happen. But number 2, he gets away with so many flagrant fouls that they don't call during the game. And I'm so tired of reading about it the next day that they apologize because they missed this and this was changed to a flagrant one. That call when he elbowed who was it? Jose at the end of the game the other day totally changes that game, because if that's called properly, we get the 2 technical fouls. It's a 2-point game with 1 minute to go. And so the NBA, it's hard. We have a joke about what did they script tonight, but it's really hard when you're not the team getting those kind of calls to deal with that and feel like there's not some sort of script. But look, I was very glad we took the best team in the NBA to 6 games, and not one of those games was a blowout. So excited about this team for next year. It's fun to have this young talent. As I said earlier, we got to figure out the Zion Williamson thing, because if he is inserted to this team, I think we're a top 3 or 4 in the West next year.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see them and what they do in the West next year. Let's talk about what's going on right now in the playoffs. Yep. If you're in the Lost Tribe bracket group, you've been keeping up. So far we've had a very exciting first round. The picks that we were incorrect on, me and you both had the Raptors, and we both had the Jazz as well at 7. I thought the Mavericks would win if they had Luka in. When he missed the first 3 games, I did not think they would go up 2-1.
I know
on the Jazz. But, the Jazz were a point away, or a wide open shot from Bogdanović, sending that to game 7. They got the perfect look that they wanted. Unfortunately, just back rim And like we said, there's a lot of rumors always swirling around the Jazz and Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And apparently that there's this breakup heating up, but I saw Rudy Gobert tweeted, "Oh, so what's the rumor today?" So he's obviously aware that everybody's talking about it, that it's either him or me, like one of them's got to go or something's got to change. And I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to connect the dots. That obviously they have yet to make the conference finals. They were the 1 seed last year and got bounced. They, lost 2 years ago on that shot by Conley. Conley threw that one away again with the travel at the end of the game. Even though they had the look, they had the ball, they were only down 1 instead. But something's not working. They've been the 1 seed. They've been, they've won like a series. They've come back against the Clippers, against, whatever. But it's just something's not working. And obviously there's all these rumors, but I think it's time to break up the crew.
There's also a rumor of Quinn Snyder being the Lakers coach next year. So, it's amazing. I saw a graphic of him from like 3 years ago to today on Twitter, and the man looks a lot older. So maybe there is something to the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert fight, and whatever they're saying about if one of us is here, the other one has to go. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is a team that's shown that it just can't get over even that first round hump and get to the next round. So pretty tough there. How do you see Sixers Heat and Mavs Suns going in round 2?
Well, tough break, obviously, for the Sixers, that Joel Embiid had that orbital fracture and mild concussion in the last game. Don't want to talk too much about it. I know there's a lot of anger towards Pascal Siakam, but it wasn't vicious. It was just a very physical series. It's the way Embiid plays. When you're up 29 with the last 3 minutes of the game, and he's still in the game and still going just as hard. I mean, it's a shame. It's a testament to, they were just really trying to give it to the Raptors, and they were definitely giving it to us all game. They were getting what they wanted. They were they went on like a 20-0 run in the third quarter, and then they won by 35. So the fact that he was even in the game is just silly, and it's unfortunate because it's going to cost them likely a game or two. I know they're playing right now, and I hear that it's not super pretty. So as for that, it's a shame. Prediction for that series, I do think that the Heat are going to win. I have the Heat going on to the conference final as well. I had them initially against the Raptors because I had Raptors, but I think that they're going to take this series in probably 6. So yeah, I got the Heat for this one.
Yeah, I like the Heat in 6 as well. I don't like the Heat in the next round, just going up against the winner of the Celtics and the Bucks. But I do think because of the injury, and because, let's be real, the Sixers, even in beating Toronto, weren't looking good after the initial 3-0 lead. So, and I agree with you 100%. Like, don't play your star when you're up that much with 3 minutes to go. And don't get surprised if there's injuries. These teams that, get 1, 2, 3 seeds in their conferences are generally the ones that have the least issues with injuries. And I can't feel bad. Like, I don't feel bad for the Suns, for dealing with injuries through this first round of the playoffs, because people have to deal with injuries. That's part of the game. You have to be strategic about where you're, when you're playing your players. Everybody deals with it. So there's no whining there. Let's just play. And, in the end, I do think the Heat win in either 5 or 6 games. It could be 5. If Embiid doesn't come back. And if he does come back, he could always get re-injured. So we'll see how they play that. I think he'll be back for game 3 once they're back in Philly. And just, they'll probably need a pick-me-up by then. And just in front of the home crowd, he's going to want to be there. So we'll see how that goes. What about Mavs Suns?
Mavs Suns, the Mavs, again, they surprised me and a lot of people that when Luka was out, it was like he's the heart and soul of this team, especially their offense. What are they going to do without him? And the Jazz just absolutely crumbled at the opportunity. But the fact that they were 2-1 in the games without him, and just able for Jalen Brunson to really step up and Spencer Dinwiddie to step up, and all of these just role players that just really stepped up for them, and they were able to come together as a team. was outstanding to watch. But I'll say the Suns did the same thing. When Booker went down, Mikal Bridges put up a career-high 30, followed by 20-something as well. The Suns showed that they were the best team in the NBA for a reason.
Yep.
I think it's still got to be the Suns. I mean, congrats to Luka and the Mavs for winning their first playoff series since the Dirk title in 2011, so over 10 years. But I think the fun stops here. I do think that the Mavs make it interesting. I'm going to say the Suns in 6. It's really hard for me to say once you get to the second or third round, any series in less than 6, you just expect it to be that way.
Right.
But the Suns are the better team, and they're going to go to the conference final and likely the final as well.
Yeah. No, I think the Suns, I think they got their scare. I think everything's, on the up and up. Devin Booker played a little bit in game 6. I think they used that mostly as a, scare tactic, because he didn't play that much. But I do see him, obviously, by game 3 coming back, maybe not full strength, but getting a lot more minutes and being an impact player. Obviously, Chris Paul has shown he's going to do whatever he can to win.
I really hope he doesn't go down. I think it would actually be worse if they lost Chris Paul than Devin Booker.
Oh my God, absolutely. Because of how he can hit that mid-range jumper. I mean, and the ball, no matter if they were playing in Phoenix or New Orleans, it was just finding its way into the rim. So I think the Heat. I think the Suns actually sweep this series. I just think that they've had their tough series, or their first tough series, and I think they come out. I think Dallas is happy to have won one. And it shows tonight. I think the Suns just blow them out of the gym, and it ends up 4-0. But I agree with you. I think they end up still in the finals. And I picked a rehash of last year with a little Bucks Suns matchup, and I think we still could be headed that way. What about
speaking of which? Let's talk about the Bucks and the Celtics. We got game 1 last night. No Chris Middleton, no problem. Giannis and Drew Holiday were both phenomenal. Giannis with his second career triple-double. The 12 assists was what really impressed me. And in watching them, some of them were beautiful, including, although it didn't count, the one off the glass to himself to throw it down. He just looks like a man amongst boys. Like, this just goes to show that, wow, the Nets were so much farther from being a contender than we really thought. For them to not even be able to get a game on the Celtics, granted, a few of them were within a point or two, but the Bucks to just come out, win by 12, hold them to 89 points. It was just a phenomenal game from them. In this series, I'm taking the Bucks. I agree with you. I have the Bucks going back, and I have the Bucks winning the championship again this year. But I think this is their year again. They're the defending champs for a reason. Drew Holiday has been amazing to watch on defense, and he's really was super confident on offense last night too. He had 2 threes in the first 3 minutes of the game, and finished with 25 and 10. So he was phenomenal, stepping up as a shooter. With Chris Middleton out, Grayson Allen has stepped up a ton. Bobby Portis was shooting the lights out. I do think that the Celtics get some games, but I have Milwaukee in 6.
Yeah, I think it's Milwaukee in 6. I would pick it in 7, but Game 7's in Boston. I think that's a tough one to win. So I think the Bucks get the lead early and close it out in Game 6. And look, Giannis was who he needed to be yesterday. He needs to make up for the Middleton loss, and Drew Holiday's always a solid performer, especially in the playoffs. So this is going to be a great series. I don't think it'll go 7, but the Celtics have been playing some unbelievable ball as well. So. I do think
Smart go out of the game for a bit, so his health could have a huge role on this game.
But I do think whoever wins this beats the winner of the Heat and the 76ers to get to the finals. So Warriors Grizzlies. So if the Grizzlies couldn't win that game, do they have a chance in this series at all? I mean, everything was going their way, and Draymond Green, tossed in quarter 1, and they still couldn't get it done. Do they have a prayer?
Yeah, no. I mean, that was the game they needed to steal.
Yeah.
I mean, this Grizzlies team has shown that they have heart and that they can fight from when they're down. I mean, they came back from 3 double-digit fourth quarter leads and won all those games against Minnesota. So I do think that they'll make it interesting, that they'll get at least a game off the Warriors. But if you can't win a game, like you said, they were running Andrew Wiggins at center
Mm-hmm.
for the entire fourth quarter. Obviously, they had the splash trio, and then Wiggins and Gary Payton actually was also their center, who's like shorter than you and I. So he's like, he was phenomenal though. But if they can't win that game, when Klay Thompson misses not one but 2 free throws with no time left, I liked the play. You know, it was the same play that won them that game against the Timberwolves. And it was the same layup that John Morant hit like 30 seconds earlier. So it's a high percentage shot. Klay just played really good defense on it. He was going so fast. It's so hard to have such a soft touch at the rim when he's like literally flying towards the basket. So if they can't win that game, and I know Draymond's going to be back with a vengeance for game 2. He was dancing his way off the court.
Exactly.
So, I think it's Warriors in 5 or 6. But there's no chance it goes past 6.
Yeah, no, and it's funny the way we talk about it. You're like, how can we steal game 1? And it was a home game for the Grizzlies. So, you know, the Warriors have been really solid. Adding Jordan Poole has been unbelievable for them, especially, you know, now you have these 3 guys. One can have a bad game every game, and you're still right there. So, but yeah, I think it goes to 6. I think the Grizzlies get a few. I think they're obviously an up-and-coming young team as well, and they have a little more of the pieces in place already. But I just think that this Warriors team, you know, until Steve Kerr loses a series before the finals, you know, which he has never done as the coach of the Warriors. So they either make the finals or they don't make the playoffs. So this year they made the playoffs. So are they going to the finals?
That's how Michael Jordan did it, and it was a pretty winning recipe. And I guess that's the debate: is would you rather be, you know, 4-6 but have gone to 10 finals, or 6-0 and, you know, there were years that you got knocked out in the first round but you didn't get knocked out in the finals.
That's right. Perfect. So but yeah, so we're getting close to time. I'm going to throw one more question at you, and it has to do with the national sport of Canada. The NHL playoffs start tonight. Neither of us is, I would say, diehard hockey fans, but knows enough. We're both fans of Canadian teams, by the way. Who is your Stanley Cup Finals pick, and is it mostly with your heart or with your head that you're making that pick?
Oh, okay. So first of all, I'm from Toronto. I haven't been a diehard fan of the Leafs since they blew the 4-1 Game 7 to Boston, you know, like 8 odd years ago or something. So that's been stinging for a long time. I haven't watched enough NHL this year to make a very educated pick. So I'm just going to go with the heart and say the Leafs. I don't know. Every year they say this is the year it'll be different. They're like that toxic relationship you just can't go back to. They'll be different. You know, they'll try harder this time. They'll change, whatever. Not going to work. It's what it is. Hopefully, I mean, Austin Matthews scored 60 goals this year. Hopefully he can get, you know, 10 or 20 more in the playoffs. But I'd love to see them make a run. The Lightning are certainly a tough first-round matchup, and I can see you think so as well. So I'm going to say Leafs, Oilers, and that's simply because, you know, go Leafs, go. And I love watching the Oilers. They got, I believe, two guys who both are in like 50 goals territory. So with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. So Leafs, Oilers, Canada Cup for the national sport of Canada.
You gotta like it. I would love to see a Canadian Cup final. I don't want to see the Oilers do anything because I'm a Flames fan. The Lightning are really tough. The Avalanche very tough as well. Those are the 2 top teams in either conference. I'm going Flames Lightning. It's going to be a rehash of the last time there was a Stanley Cup before a lockout, where you know, the Lightning beat the Flames in 7, and then they had the Stanley Cup for 2 straight years because there was no hockey the year after. So I'm also going with, you know, my heart, not my head. Although the Flames are a top seed, they're not the top seed in the West. So, but yeah, give me Flames. I want to see it. They haven't won the Cup since '89. That was before I knew hockey was even a sport, being from the South. So I'd like to see them win it for real once.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's weird that you're a Flames fan to me, but I mean, if Canada's in the Cup, I'm rooting for them. Obviously, the Lightning being there means that they get past the Leafs. The Panthers are also a dangerous team. They've got, I think, the best record in the NHL. So, but they also lost like to some terrible teams recently. But regardless, that's the NHL talk. I just see breaking news from one of our Discord members. Shout out to Daniel Schapp. that Auburn basketball is announcing a foreign tour to Israel and will face the Israel U20 national team as well as their senior national team, and that the foreign trips at Auburn basketball have been a part of the program for over 40 years. And Israel has never been a destination yet. They're one of the top in the top 3 countries in international quality of basketball. So shout out to Auburn. Shout out to Daniel Schaap for letting us know that. If you ever want anything to come on the show and it's as interesting as that, you can definitely send us a DM and we'll talk about it. That's awesome.
That's cool. Is that this fall or like before this basketball season coming up?
I likely, for the upcoming
season. we need to Pastor Rock needs to be there to cover that live.
Oh yeah,
to see some action. So, but that's awesome. Well, Jesse, thanks for another Monday night. Catch us on YouTube. This will be on our YouTube feed, and you can see a lot of past episodes, our interviews, and other shows. You can actually see last year's mock draft, and I'll probably have to take a look and see how off we were for that one and compare it to this year. But But yeah, all good. We're on YouTube. You can catch us on Facebook as well. So thanks a lot, and we will see you next week.